Oki na Daniku, Taryn Williamson, Amskapi Pakani, Ginumptu Nato Gyokasi. Hello, my name is Taryn Williamson, and I am from the Blackfeet Nation, and I also come from the Two Medicine River. I would like to first start off by saying thank you to the Little Shell Tribe for allowing me to present to you all today. Um, Here is today's agenda. Today I'm going to be going over elderberry and kinnicknick, and um, yep. Here's this little slide. Um, there's me, and then there's little me. So I actually come from the Blackfeet Nation. I grew up on the Blackfeet Reservation, along the Two Medicine River, which is about 12 miles southeast of Browning, Montana. I was raised in a very traditional household. I I graduated from Browning High School, and then I actually went to the University of Montana, but I decided to move back to Browning because I lost someone very personal to me. That is when I ended up becoming a mother in 2015. And with that, I decided to further my education at the Blackfeet Community College. So I become a CNA to better provide for my son. So what I did was I decided to relocate to Butte, Montana. This was back in 2021. I started working at this nursing home because, like, with my CNA background, I decided to keep my caregiving experience to good use. But then that's when I discovered the Butte Native Wellness Center, and I was fortunate enough to stick around for the past 3 years, and I am currently now the cultural specialist. So it's I begin in the fall. Or, excuse me, sorry. I'm currently in uh, my schooling right now. I'm doing really well. I'm earning a bachelor's degree. My major is in history. I am minoring in ethnobotany right now. I am going to the University of Alaska Fairbanks. That's where I'm getting my education. And currently, my anthropology class and a lot of my writing class even is focusing a lot on like culture, and I don't know, it's really has a lot to do with what I'm doing now. So I really enjoy it. Um, but later in this presentation, I'll describe what like ethnobotany is and what herbalism is, and just kind of like the differences between those two. So on this slide, whoops, on this one, I just like to add St. Mary's Lake. This is Glacier National Park. This is my people's traditional homeland, and then this is my new home right here. This is Butte. So I've done this presentation quite a bit, and nothing's really changed. I still live here in Butte, still from the Blackfeet Nation. And if you would like to go back and go watch my other videos, I highly suggest that. I don't ever bring it up in the beginning of my videos, so I'm doing that now before I get going throughout this. So the beginning, but when I start talking about the plants, that's where, or actually when I get to the ethnobotany slide, that's where I will tell a story. Um, but yeah, this beginning stuff is all the same because our organization is still growing and everything. So, we are an urban Indian organization, which is described by the Indian Health Service, which is IHS, that we are a nonprofit corporation that's located in an urban center, and we do have a board of directors. As described by IHS, 51% of whom are 51% are American Indian or Alaskan Native. Well, our primary purpose is to establish and manage an urban Indian health program and other associated activities. There are about there are around 41 UIOs across the nation. 5 of those reside in Montana. I added this slide so I can talk about the Butte Native Wellness Center and what we all do here. So like I mentioned earlier, I have been working here for the past 3 years. Our services are primary care, mental health, diabetes care, and wellness. We have a registered dietitian, there's a licensed addiction counselor, we do have recovery services, and then there's me, which is the cultural services. Um, what our what our organization covers is a lot in-house, and I've just watched the whole place just grow as one. And what I really like to view this organization is kind of like a medicine wheel because of the holistic approach that comes with it. Because we do cover there's in the medicine wheel there's the emotional, physical, spiritual, and emotional. And in our organization, we cover all of those aspects. So there's the spiritual, which is me, then there's the emotional, which is like the mental health, and then there's, just it just goes, it touches all aspects. And we're just trying to help the native population any way we can. And we know there's different approaches with that. Like right now, I was just thinking about this earlier, how we as a with the cultural department, what we do is we provide different things that here I'll go to the next slide. So for me, what I do is, as the cultural specialist um, is I provide different ways to connect back to our culture, which can come in all different ways, meaning that um, it can be like beading, or next thing you know, we're introducing these plants, which is connecting us to the land. And then we also have our registered dietitian who is um, providing us information about traditional foods and stuff. So that's just another way. So as for me, like I said, I promote the cultural connectedness in an urban environment. Um, I guide natives who really aren't culturally connected back to their roots. And another way we like to do this, like such as like this picture right here, this box, I provide smudging materials for people. And I also, like I said, I help with beading and I teach people how to make moccasins. And then I just honestly just kind of help people understand that like it's okay to be who you are because I learn in like an urban community that identity is very important and it's very I don't know I just he's got to be proud to, of who you are and then learn to love who you are and where your people come from. I don't know. I working with so many different natives in this community. I I just say embrace it and run with it. But also, what I like to do is also say acknowledge those who came before us as children because of just everything in our history. So because of those children, we're able to keep the culture alive today. But so I just like to give that acknowledgement. But I am creating the reciprocal relationship by learning from all these native individuals that come in and see me. I'm learning from them too. So not only am I trying to like teach them different things, but I'm learning from them too. I just kind of make little mental notes whenever I'm talking to them, and it's very I don't know, I like learning like that. But so just because we don't live on the reservation doesn't mean we have to stop participating in our native ways. And the reason why I have that written down like on my little notes is because I grew up on the reservation, and now that I don't live there anymore, there is this disconnect. And I'm trying to rebuild that in a way that natives can connect on, no matter like what tribe you're from. So um, yeah, it's like a piece of home away from home in a way. But I also help with the recovery services because I too am a native who is in recovery. Um, I am certified to facilitate so to facilitate the white bison Wellbriety and talking circles. What that is, it's like an AA or NA for Native Americans. I'm very open about my recovery and my story and everything, just because I believe that being open about it, it's breaking that silence and it could help those who are still suffering from addiction. I just want to let people know that I follow that red road and it's my culture that actually keeps me going strong in my sobriety. So, it's like to put that out there. Okay, on to our herbal pharmacy, which is becoming very popular. Um, the herbal pharmacy is actually made up of, right now we have 13 herbs sitting out there, and they all kind of go across the board of like different, that just kind of fall in line with different tribes across the nation. We are a UIO, that means we are very inclusive with other tribes and cultures that come with them, including the different types of plants that they use too. Um, I in the future I want to try and like, I'm gonna rotate some out. Probably not the sweetgrass or the sage or the cedar or the tobacco because I with my research I've know that most tribes think those are um, the most important. But these other ones I want to rotate out and put different ones out there available for people. Because yeah, I need to update that photo also because it looks way better now. So with our herbal pharmacy, what we do now, what I would do is I would let people make their own little personal medicine bags. But currently, what I am starting to work towards is actually embracing indigenous knowledge because of the people that have been coming into our center and they see this. I hear a lot of, oh, my grandma you would use this when they were sick, or they would my auntie told me they should do this. I grew up with this, and they would just like be telling me stuff like that. I'm like, oh wow, cool. And they would take that, and I would just be like, all right, well, just kind of do whatever. But us as an organization, we can't be like prescribing this. And I always say this in every presentation. We put a disclaimer about like, any type of like consumption towards these because um, there's just like a different type of like clinical background that we need regarding these, which I don't know. I'm probably going to start. I don't know. There's my, I have all these ideas. I think right now we're just gonna go. Maybe we might start leaning towards teas if that's okay, but even that might be a little on the fence. But anyways, yeah, I am just kind of like, all right, well, I think we need to start um really really looking at how people today are acknowledging those old ways and still using them today, because I remember even going back home and I seen one of my cousins. He actually has his own little herbal pharmacy. He didn't call it herbal pharmacy, but he had in his actual medicine cabinet, and he's kind of had like some bear root and some sage and some, just different things like that in there. It's pretty cool. But okay, so the reason why we implemented the herbal pharmacy was actually because there was an individual that come from the Blackfeet community who for worked for previously with Zero Suicide, which is this nonprofit organization that focuses on like mental and behavioral health. Well, anyways, he come to the center and he introduced us to using traditional medicine to promote like a better well-being. Um, and the way he taught us to do that was taking each of these herbs, and he had us sitting down and he taking each of these herbs and putting them in a little piece of cloth and tying it up and kind of keeping it close to yourself. And we just called them medicine bags because, historically for natives, we consider plants and stuff like that as medicine, because it healed us, whether that be medicinally or spiritually. Um, it just had healing components that we were very fond of and we respected. So with the little medicine bags, we were just like, all right, cool, yeah. So we've been really promoting that and pushing that. And what I like to correlate that with is the grounding technique. So like with my medicine bag, I've had this scent for going on 3 years now. I'm smelling it. Um, I correlate it with the grounding technique because it practices like opening up all your senses. Because with me, I suffer from anxiety. With addiction comes the mental health stuff. So with my anxiety and stuff, what my medicine bag does is I can feel it, I can see it, I can touch it, and I can smell it. I'm not going to taste it, but that's enough senses for me to kind of sit there and ground myself within the moment, which is what we also promote our herbal pharmacy to, like, especially for people who don't know, like, what these herbs were used for, or, they don't have that type of knowledge. Then I would just suggest people just to make themselves a little medicine bag, because underneath each of those little jars on out there, I have little descriptions that I've condensed from different tribes, and um, they just describe different ways that those plants help them, whether that be like, um, they were taking it for a cold or to clear up their lung congestion, different things like that. Anyways, I would just tell them, like, go ahead and read those descriptions, or if you feel like you're connected to like these little herbs, then just go ahead and build your own little medicine bag, and that's what else we offer people too. Because this our herbal pharmacy is actually, yeah, go to the next slide. So who has access to this? Our herbal pharmacy is actually open up to everyone. So that's why I said for people who don't really have that type of knowledge of why they're trying to obtain these herbs, um, is I'm I just plan on offering them to make themselves a little medicine bag because this medicine is, I mean, these herbs are medicine and they're, uh, I don't know, I think they keep, I don't know, it's very, very indescribable. Sometimes there's no words to describe things like these. Um, but yeah, I I just like having these herbs around. It's like they're they have their own little spirits in their way. Anyways, enough of that. Where do we obtain our herbs? So I like to order from like native-owned businesses. I found this one, like our sage. There's this one elder who actually goes out and picks it, and I was able to get a hold of them, and so that's where we get our sage. It's over in South Dakota where we get that. But and we get our sweetgrass over like in Missoula. So, and then I know this other lady that grows sweetgrass outside of Butte. We are trying to, I don't know, they're just trying to find native places or just, local places because I don't know. Okay, so for this is still on our radar, which is plant grow forage, but um, we do still plan on doing that plant grow and forage. But like we're partnering me and the registered dietitian. I feel like um, she's really gonna have a good advantage at growing like different native foods, like indigenous that are indigenous to North America. And that's because we've had a lot of successful gardening thanks to our registered dietitian and her helper Phoebe, who's our outreach specialist. They both really took a good job at gardening, and just with our community garden, man, it just flourished, and they were able to provide for our patients and the community, and they were able to harvest. It was so cool watching them do that. I don't know, makes me feel happy working with people who like care like that, especially for, us as a native community that's in an urban setting. It's very, very wonderful to be part of this team. So anyways, so actually last year I was gifted some sweetgrass starters, which are different varieties. There's one variety that's from the Montana variety, which is from the Sweetgrass Hills. And then there's another variety that's from Ohio. And the Ohio one actually grows really long. And then that Montana one's kind of shorter a little bit. But right now, they're just in pots, and I let them go. They've been sitting outside, and I let them go dormant. And the reason for that is because I was reading about sweetgrass. Reason for that is because before, like a few years ago, we tried this before growing sweetgrass, but we were trying it inside, and it just did not go through that well. They just would not stay alive at all, and it was really sad. So this time I kept them outside, and they were just just alive and well and just green and happy. So I believe keeping them out in the natural elements is what's kind of keeping them going. But the lady that gifted them to us, her name is Van. She's Van Moselic. She's very, very nice lady. I'm very, very appreciative with her partnership and her wisdom and her her knowledge on sweetgrass also. She's very respectful when it comes to sweetgrass. She's a non-native lady, but she's very, very respectful. As coming from an indigenous person, it's it makes me very very happy to see people like that, to be that respectful, especially towards sweetgrass. And it just looks like regular grass, but for her, she was even telling us like, okay, we got to pray before we do this, and we got to. And I was like, wow. And she was just like, yeah, it's just. She said she just gets it, which is very cool. So as I mentioned, our herbal pharmacy is actually gaining a lot of popularity. It's been an inspiration to different UIO or urban Indian health clinics across the nation, including the Denver Family Services, Indian Health and Family Services, sorry. What they did was they first they just provided the four main sacred herbs, sweetgrass, sage, cedar, and tobacco. And they're offering like little medicine bags, and they gave out 130 of them actually. And everybody was like so excited and so happy for the accessibility. And I contacted her, and her name, the lady who is actually part of this herbal pharmacy project, is Dr. Claire Kronoki. She told us that she was promoted to what's known as the traditional medicine practitioner because her background is an enrolled Ojibwe tribal member, but she also has expertise in the Chinese medicine. So a lot of her work really revolves around herbal medicine, but it's really cool because she was granted permission to indigenize her pharmacy. And that's where she got to put her indigenous knowledge to use, and she was very excited to do it. But yeah, it was also mentioned at a different conference that my supervisor went to down in, I believe it was in Georgia. But yeah, so it's starting to become popular. Woohoo. All right, so this slide is about plants. So plants is plants is plants are labeled as a living organism. Um, the reason why is because they actually thrive in an environment that contains soil and water. But then they go through this process known as photosynthesis, and this allows them to grow their like leaves and stems and roots and everything. By the rays of the sun. And just like how you and I are breathing, living beings, so are plants, trees, and shrubs. So the plant kingdom can be broken down into classification, and that involves the species, genus, order, family, class, and division. And this helps scientists and anyone interested in plants to understand exactly what type of plant they are studying. The species of a plant is important to identify as it can lead into the varieties of plants, which are just types of plants found within a certain type of species. For example, during the first presentation, I discussed sweetgrass, which is a species from the grass family. And spirit germplasm sweetgrass is actually a variety of the sweetgrass species. So it's a little confusing, but learning about plants and understanding how important they are can actually help ecosystem and sustainability when it comes to natural resources. So herbalism, this is a practice that has been around for thousands of years. It's just the studying and practicing the medicine and therapeutic uses of plants, especially in alternative medicine. And this is what herbalism really is. Most herbalists that prescribe herbal remedies have like this medical practitioner background that includes a degree and clinical hours. Other than that, almost anyone who is interested in herbal medicine can look into it without the prescribing aspect. So traditional Chinese medicine is a type of herbal practice. This that differs from the Western herbal medicine. Chinese medicine doesn't specifically treat the illness like herbalists do. They treat the person as a whole. So what they do is they reflect on their lifestyle and they're just trying to seek that balance within their life. Herbalists are people who use plants for healing. So what they do is they want to figure out what's causing the illness and why. And then their next step is kind of find that herb or that root to treat this. So their main focus is just surrounding the illness or the rash or the pain. And this is important to remember as I go over ethnobotany. So, ethnobotany is the scientific study of relationships between people and plants. It examines how different cultures use and perceive plants in various aspects of life, including nutrition, medicine, um, and just different things. So, this field combines elements of botany and anthropology and ecology to understand how traditional knowledge and practices regarding plants are integrated into daily life and cultural traditions. This is what I'm going to be studying at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. So when it comes to Native people and utilizing these gifts and plants, we would not only use them for medicinal purposes, such as like curing an infection or a really bad cough. A lot of tribes would actually use Mother Nature for either their shelter or their food or their clothing. Even the air that we breathe into our lungs, that's because of the trees around us. Without nature, we could not sustain life. So, how the indigenous people retained our ancestral knowledge was actually practicing the oral tradition of storytelling. We did not have a written history, and this is why our stories are very important. And they not only have moral or ethical lessons, but it creates a spiritual connection too. If it wasn't for our stories, we wouldn't know how to properly live. And through our storytelling, essential knowledge about the natural world, such as like medicinal plants and the behavior of animals, even how the seasons change, that was through the oral tradition. It was just how we learned back then. Back in the old days. So, um, I just want to give examples of storytelling because, like I said, we're in an urban setting, and a lot of urban natives here they don't get this type of connection that I was very fortunate enough to be able to get. I remember hearing these stories when, I was just a kid. And I'm talking to grown adults now that are native that don't have that type of background. They don't have that type of connection. And so I'm just sitting there and I'm like, oh, well, here, I'll tell you a story then. And, it's, I don't know. I'm very grateful for everything that I was able to learn. Anyways, oh, just start going off. Anyways, so in the previous presentations, I told like a Napi story, and then I talked about Gatoyes, and then I told the story about the little buffalo stone story. So this next story, I actually heard in my astrology class when I was in high school. My teacher, he's a Blackfeet teacher, and he works with OPI. He's very knowledgeable about our people, and he had a really big impact on me. His name was Mr. Bird. He I remember he told us this story in class, and that's when I was like looking on YouTube, and I seen it on YouTube, and I was like, oh my gosh, I remember this story. Anyways, here I'm going to tell it the best I can. Um, so like I said, this was my astrology class that I heard this story in. My people, the Blackfeet tribe. So that's another thing I want to point out. Because I'm from the Blackfeet tribe, I can really speak for my own people, only speak for my own people, but can't really speak for other tribes, in a way. But anyways, for the Blackfeet tribe, we were heavily invested into the stars because we believe that's where we come from as people. And these stories of us getting our ways from the Spumota Peaks, Spum- Spumota Peaks. Oh, sorry, got stuck in my throat. So that's so the Spumota Peaks. So that the sky people, which is actually like up there with Natusi, sun, um and Gokomikikso, which is moon. This story is what he told us is about the bunch stars, who is actually known as the six brothers also. So way back then, a long time ago, there's this family. Um, it had the mom and dad, and it had these six boys with them, and they were pretty pitiful. They didn't really have much, kind of hungry and stuff. Well, anyways, this it was during calving season, and for the buffalo, and all the children in that tribe, they they all got these yellow calf robes because the the older buffalo robes were brown, but the calf buffalo's robes were yellow. So all these children were running around with yellow calf robes, and those six boys, they all just had those the old buffalo robes, and that's how you can tell they were pitiful because they didn't get the new ones, and they got teased for having them, and this made these boys really upset. Um, what they did was they said they were all talking amongst each other, and they said, you know what we should do? We should just go away. Next time they want to tease us, let's just get out of here. And so, they end up getting teased again, and so they they decided they said, but when we go away, we're gonna punish these people who are teasing us. We're gonna take that water away from them. That way they won't have any water for 7 days. We'll take that water from them. And so it was the oldest boy who said, all right, you guys, Let's go to the sky. So he told them all to close their eyes, and he took some weasel hairs. And this is what Mr. Bird, he said that he took those weasel hairs and what did he do? I think he said he sprinkled them on top of each other, on top of those boys. And he told those boys, he said, close your eyes. I don't want you to, don't open your eyes until I tell you to. And so those boys listened. They said, okay, we won't. And so he took those weasel hairs and he put them on top of those boys and he threw them up in the air. And when he did, he said, open your eyes. And all those boys opened their eyes and they were up in the sky. And they were up there with Natusi and Kokomikiksum, sun and moon. And the sun said, what are you boys doing here? And those boys told that sun and moon how those people down there, they were mistreating them and they were teasing them and everything. That sun asked, what do you want me to do? What do you want? What do you want me? What do you want from me? And those boys said, take their water away from them. And the sun didn't say anything. But the Kokomikiksum, the moon grandma, she was just crying. And she felt bad for these boys. And she said, I'll help you. She said, but you're gonna have to stay in this sky forever. And so the moon asked Sun again to help, but he didn't answer her. So the moon kept asking her, or kept asking not to see Sun. And she asked 7 times, and that's when the sun finally agreed to help. And the next thing you know, the earth just dried up, and there was no water in sight, and it was so hot. And the people, it wasn't for those people. They decided to take those dogs in the middle of the night to this riverbed. And those dogs, once they got to that riverbed, they just started digging. And when they were digging, they end up making a spring. And this was the first time water has ever, come from the earth like that. They've never seen a spring like that come. So um, on the 6th day, those dogs, they were all really tired of digging so much because, the people needed water, more and more water. And those dogs started to howl at Natusi and Kokomikiksum, the sun and moon. And that leader who was a medicine dog, he said, I'll pray. And he started praying and he asked Natusi and our sun and moon. He said, please have pity on all of us. And thankfully he was a medicine dog because they listened to him. And it was the 7th day when the rain finally fell and come back. But uh, those brothers end up living in the sky forever. And for us as Blackfeet, we call them the bunch stars or the Miyohboksiks. So this story is to remind us that we must treat all children with respect. And also it's the reason why for us Blackfeet, the reason why we paint those 6 stars up on our little teepee ear flaps. It's to remind us of that story. So it's to kind of, help remind us that children are really important to us. So with that, oh, you can also find that story on YouTube too. If you just Google the Blackfeet, the bunch stars, you can hear my astrology teacher. He's the one that tells it. It's really, really good story. He tells it way better. But anyways, as an Indigenous person that was raised in the culture that involves plants and trees and roots and berries, This to me was just kind of like part of my life, and this is where the generational wealth is in this specific knowledge comes from. I teach my son what I've been taught, and then he's going to teach his children what he's been taught. And this kind of creates that cultural ripple effect that we have to keep alive. I mean, I don't know if we'll ever go back to the res. So, and that's where the res is where the culture really is, like, because it's so accessible, and the elders are there, and the people that know a bunch of stuff is there. But us that made that choice to move off, we have to keep that alive somehow. So I still go back and I practice, still go practice my ways. I now I'm able to practice in ceremonies and stuff. But anyways, so our first one is elderberry. But before we begin to discuss the two main topics of today's presentation, I would like to first point out that I do not claim, nor do I have any rights of any type of like medicine man or medicine woman title. I don't. Um, I want to address that although that some of these plants can be considered ceremonial, and I will not be going into any type of ceremony practices because that's that's just how I was raised. There's crucial details when it comes to our ceremonies that as an individual, I don't have those rights to be discussing. But what I can share with you actually is my the knowledge of my upbringing. Not the ceremonial part, but the other parts that I can share. So I've learned different knowledge from different elders and different tribal members from different tribes. I've done my own studies on these plants. It's a little working progress. But just as I mentioned earlier, that because Butte Native Wellness Center is an urban organization, we like to be inclusive with all tribes. And just because I told that Blackfeet story, and I said I can only speak for my own tribe. Well, this is just information that I found about different tribes that's accessible on the and then also from different tribal members that told me different things. But we were inclusive with all tribes, though. It really gives me a deeper understanding on how important our connection is really with the land. But our first one is elderberry. So this shrub is known in every continent on Earth except Antarctica. Elderberry is native to North and South America, Europe, Asia, and the South Pacific. There's around 10 different species of elderberry that are native to North America, but there's about 200 different species growing all over the world. In the state of Montana, according to the article Elderberry Variety Evaluation, wait, evaluation by the Western Agriculture Research Center at the Montana State University, there are two species of elderberry in Montana. So with the plant classifications on this slide, I add the triangle diagrams just so you can properly see the order in which plant classifications lie in. So during most of my presentations, I usually only focus on one plant, but these are so closely related to each other, I decided to talk about both of them. These plants were classified by the Montana Field Guide of Plants. So I've mentioned before the reason why it is important to understand plant classification. Well, now I'm going to talk about the importance of understanding berry classification. Although it is considered a plant still, it just produces berries. Plant classification is actually very important for others to understand what they are looking for and studying. So in this next one, I'm actually going to be going over the plant or the berry classification. So what berry classification is understanding how berries are perceived on a scientific or botanical level. It is important to understand classification because some berries can actually be dangerous to ingest. It gets a little technical when it comes to flowers and seeds than what comes from these flowers, hence berries. Seeing it's even the wording and terminology in the plant world is very crazy. So anything with an outer layer with holding a fleshy fruit on the inside with seeds, this is considered a fruit or a berry. This includes like blueberries, cranberries, tomatoes, even bananas is in that classification. So true berries are what huckleberries are. So as I was doing my research, and oh, so elderberries was um, described as both a true berry and a drupe berry. A drupe berry is because it contains seeds on the inside. See, it's very there's just different types of things that go on with the berries. So I wanted to add pictures. So there's the blue elderberry and there is the red elderberry. Elderberries, so the way they grow in shrubs, typically multi-stemmed. They can grow anywhere from like 5 to about 12 feet tall. The leaves, they're like smaller leaflets and they're like arranged like around that central stalk. The flowers, which the elderberries produce, they're large and there's like a cluster of them and they're usually like white, like a pale yellow, which like bloom in the late spring and then early summer, but it's just the process of how they go. But the berries, they're small, and they're, this dark, kind of dark purplish looking color, and they're pretty dense, obviously. But they usually appear in like the late summer to early fall. So what they like to grow in, uh, especially because the elderberries that grow in Montana, they adapted to like a range of different climates, including like cooler temperatures to like different moisture levels. So yeah, but it's what the soil that they prefer. So the soil they prefer well drained. Um, so like really moist soil that can tolerate like different ranges from like sandy to more clay-like soil. And they actually thrive in full sun to like partial shade. So in Montana, they can be found in like some areas of like sunlight, but it's mostly like in shade in more hotter months. Because I know berries like this can actually dry up if the bears or, us, because we really love to pick berries. Um, if we don't catch them in time, they end up drying up because sometimes it gets too hot. But the wildlife, it's a food and insects are actually attracted to the flowers and the flowers attract pollinators. So it attracts the bees and the butterflies and it just kind of goes. So the red and the blue elderberries are edible, but only if the seeds have been removed. All other parts of the plants are considered very toxic, such as like the stem or the leaves. Elderberry is known in the history of elderberry is known in every continent. Just as I mentioned in the beginning of the section, with that, that means there's tons of cultures all around the world that incorporate their own knowledge and uses for elderberry. The Romans actually used them for making wine, and then they used the berries as part of like culinary dishes, such as like syrups and jams, and even made hair dye out of the juices. And the medicinal uses was they were using like ointments that were made from the roots and other general like tonics that were treating digestive issues and other like improving their overall health. The Egyptians, actually, ancient Egyptians used elderberries to heal burns and then improve complexion. So I have added this slide to show the importance of indigenous people that viewed this land. Just as I mentioned in the ethnobotany slide, Native people utilize nature for everything, including the spiritual significance all the way to like traditional knowledge. So us as Indigenous people that are gaining this knowledge back from what was lost, the knowledge about the plants that have developed over generations. This includes insights into plant uses, growth patterns, and then the ecological relationships. So preserving this knowledge helps maintain cultural heritage and it ensures that valuable information about plant species is not lost. Elderberry has been known in many different tribes across North American continent. There are many similarities among the descriptions of uses that come from Native American tribes. So from the piece of document surrounding the Lakota tribe that this booklet called Culturally Important Plants of the Lakota. It has interviews and everything about their plants. It is by Linda S. Black Elk and the Wilbur D. Flying by Senior at the Sitting Bull College. So it says about elderberry, quote, the fruits are eaten after being dried or cooked. An infusion of the flowers makes a pleasant tea. The flowers were sometimes dried in a maple sap and then dried and eaten like candy. The ripe berries were boiled with honey or maple sap, and the resulting syrup is used to treat cough or cold or any other viral illnesses. However, caution must be used as the leaves and stems are very poisonous. End quote. So just like I mentioned before, they're not safe. The leaves and the stems. So I know personally my tribe, the Blackfeet tribe, we really favored like any type of berry that we can benefit from. So according to the article Indigenous Peoples Perspective Project, written by the Attikins Ar- Arboretum, they mention the medicinal properties of elderberry. The bark was for diarrhea, and the berries and the flowers were boiled, and they were turned into salves for burns. Even the leaves were documented to aid swelling and skin infections. So the native tribes that were located in the Northern California region, such as the Yukuts and the Promo tribes, utilized elderberries also. They were making dyes from the juices and they were making the bows and, using the bark for the bows and curing them for burns and arthritis. This is what ethnobotany is all about, pretty much. It's studying how these tribes use these plants. So yeah. Sorry, I'm drinking water right in this mic. Um, Elderberry is described as a very common medicinal plant in today's world. While reading the Healthline article titled Elderberry Benefits and Dangers, it mentions how historically this plant has been used both medicinally and culinary purposes. And in today's day and age, scientists were able to test this plant that led to proving all the health benefits. In this same article, it begins to list the nutrients elderberry has, which is considered high in vitamins and dietary fiber. The scientific findings consisted of studies of people with influenza taking um, taking elderberry 3 times a day resulted in a shorter sick period. It also brings up how the berries are full of antioxidants too. And the studies show that the juice can actually remove fat from in the blood and it can decrease cholesterol. So elderberries can increase insulin secretion to improve blood sugar levels. The list of benefits continue in this single article that I just mentioned. Um, it also brings up how elderberries have significant evidence in fighting cancer and protects against UV radiation. It also fights harmful bacteria and it supports the immune system. As I mentioned earlier, the bark can be very toxic. Also, the berries need to be, or the stem and the leaves can be toxic. The berries need to be cooked in order to be eaten, and they have a better taste um, also, and it can actually cause vomiting if it's ingested if they're uncooked. So now we are going to our next plant. Our next plant is knick-knick. So there's other names that this plant has been called that I during my research that I found, which was bearberry, bear's grape, hog cranberry, and sandberry. So, mhm, knick-knack is native to both North America and Eurasia. And in North America, it can be found in California, New Mexico, Canada, Alaska, all the way up into like the Greenlands. In Eurasia, excuse me, it can be found in Spain, Italy, Greece, and then the North Cape. There are around 14 different species of kinnikinnick, but today we are going to just focus on the one species that grows here in Montana. So here is the triangle diagram. This was the resource that I used was the United States Department of Agriculture. So classifying has also been mentioned to understand evolutionary relationships, which means this is how people understand how different plants evolve together over time and how they're actually related. The characteristics of knick-knack. So they are in evergreen foliage. That means they retain their leaves throughout the year. This helps them like survive in various climates and seasons. They have little tough, little tiny small leaves. They are adapted to withstand harsh environmental conditions, including the cold and dry. Their plants grow very low, it's spreading ground covers. This grow habit makes them useful for erosion control and ground stabilization in gardens and natural landscapes. The little red berries that they grow, they're typically edible, though they're not usually considered like highly, they're not really. They're more like food for like wildlife. During the flowering season, the knick plants, they grow little small bell-shaped flowers that can be either pink or white or sometimes like this reddish color. It really depends on the species. Mhm. So, as I mentioned in previous presentations, I usually talk about the history of this plant, meaning how it was used in different cultures like around the world. I was only finding the significance of how the indigenous people of North America used Kinnikinnick. So, we're just going to go straight into the tribal perspective of usage behind Kinnikinnick. So this name actually dates back to the usage in 1799, which comes from a Unami language that was spoken by a tribe that was located somewhere in like the Delaware area. The tribe was the Lenape people. The meaning of this word actually translates into smoking mixture. Crazy. So if you know, you know. Anyways, during the ventures that Lewis and Clark were on, Lewis was a famous botanist and he was discovering new plants from that's what his journal was just full of. And he actually mentioned that the berries that grew on these ground covering shrubs were very, very bitter until they were boiled and then dried. Another note that he made was how two different tribes use Kinnikinnick. The Colville tribe and then use them to make like dried cakes with either like venison or salmon. And then there's another different California tribe that actually made up a cider-like beverage with the berries. So there are multiple tribes in North America that have documentation post post colonization stating that um, Kinnikinnick was used for ceremonial purposes. Um, On the University of Montana Ethnobotany Garden webpage, it mentions only a few of the tribes here in Montana utilizing it pre-colonization. So the Flathead tribe also used the leaves for different ceremonial purposes, but they only ate the berries in case of an emergency. They also noted that using the for using this plant in aiding for some of the issues in the urinary tract. The Blackfeet tribe, we used it, of course, in different ceremonial ways, but also for a very versatile tea with different type of healing properties. So this tea was used as a way for like laxative or urinary antiseptic from inflammation in the urinary tract and even helping with kidney stones. So this tea created a mouthwash that would help canker sores inside of your mouth. And then it would treat the inflamed gums too. Then it was used to help make a salve that would help different types of skin conditions, such as rashes and skin sores and different stuff due to dry, itchy scalp, and dandruff. The berries were then prepared and stored for the winter among different types of berries, and that helped the Blackfeet members get a forecast for when so the berries were prepared and stored for winter among other different types of berries, but the berries also helped Blackfeet members get a forecast for the upcoming winter. It is said that a large amount of fruit on a bush means that a harsh winter will be coming. While researching how the Crow tribe used Kinnikinnick, I come across a testimony from a very young boy talking about how he used Kinnikinnick for his asthma because it was so bad the doctors could not do anything for him no more. So he decided to go to his elder in the community who was a medicine man. And that's where that elder took those Kinnikinnick shavings from the bark and the berries and he made a tea out of this. And the elder instructed that boy, you can drink this tea and smoke this pipe which contained Kinnikinnick. And the boy did as he was told and claimed that this helped him out tremendously. But yeah, it's very, very cool testimony. In today's world, Kinnikinnick is still very prevalent in the Native community. such as ceremonial, it's just it's used today. Besides for the native community, it is also known as a popular ground cover choice. For the reason why is because Kinnikinnick doesn't have like serious diseases or insect problems, and that is actually very well known pollinators as well. So yeah, people just really favor it for that reason. So this is my conclusion for the two types of. In conclusion, there are two types of elderberries that grow in Montana. The berries are edible when boiled, but the stems and the leaves are considered toxic. And Kinnikinnick is still used in today's world. So the teachings from these plants can not only improve our ecosystem, but they can also be a healing component when it comes to working with plants. It can also improve one's mental health well-being. Um, Let me know if you have any questions or discussions. Here, this is for the Butte Native Wellness Center. This is different things that we hold here. We do beading workshops. Oh shoot, we don't do the teen summer program anymore. But yeah, it's very, very good. But yeah, thank you so much.